welcome on in to another episode of Getting Wild with Terry and Friends. I'm Terry, Ian beside me, Kalisha down below, as well as Tyson. We will have Alex joining us here shortly, but the time has come to finally talk about the Minnesota Wild. I'm super excited for this. The shows, this is the reason why I wanted to do the shows in the first place. The season preview shows was to talk about the Wild, so super excited. I have two Wild fans and Wild writers joining us here today. Kalisha, welcome on in. If you wanted to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, the floor is yours.
What's going on, everybody? I'm just gonna keep it short and simple. I just started over at Zone Coverage. Already got some pieces, written. A long time devoted Wild fan. And a lot of my neighbors can tell you about it when I got complaints, noise complaints, watching the games and everything. Um, um, I like driving by the XL Energy Center, seeing the fans going in at the games. You just yell out my window like Stanley Cup, So I'm just ready for a new season and for our prospect pool to, just take off. So, you can follow me at Kalisha Townsell. I'll even retweet this chat, so everybody can follow me. We want to see more content.
Yeah, next season there'll be a Wild game going on. Kaprizov hooked on a breakaway. Where's the penalty? She'll be shouting it. Yeah. No call.
Yeah, you'll be able to find Kalisha and Tyson. Both their links to their Twitters will be in the description below after the video. And Kalisha, total respect about the noise complaints. I haven't got there yet, but I'm sure my neighbors have wanted to because some of those games last year, those furious comebacks, maybe at the top of my lungs. So no judgment there for sure. Tyson, welcome on in.
Yeah, so I'm Tyson. I just recently started writing for the Hockey Writers, one of their Minnesota Wild covers. So you can find all my stuff. I usually spread it out there on Twitter at TyceMake15. I'm going to be doing most of the preseason or pre-game kind of stuff for this year. So looking at matchups and that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. Excited to be able to spread some Minnesota Wild love. I'm East Coast Canada boy, so there's not too many other Wild fans to talk to down here. So anybody that wants to talk some Wild, I'm usually up for a good chat.
Awesome. Yeah, when I found out there's a fellow Canadian that likes the Wild, I'm like, whoa, this can't be true.
Yeah,
but it's awesome to hear that there's others for sure.
Few and far between. So
it's a 1 in a million shot right there. Yeah,
basically, yeah,
for sure. We will jump into the first segment, and then we'll have Alex joining us here in a bit. Additions and subtractions. So we're basically going to look at what the Wild have done here in the off season. So I'll start with the additions. Philipp Gustafsson and Cam Talbot, 1-for-1 trade there. Not too long after the draft. I'm totally fine with this trade. Yes, okay, Cam Talbot has more pedigree. Obviously, he has more previous history, obviously with the Wild as well. But there was some behind-the-scenes stuff in the locker room with his wife on Twitter that was going on. That is a distraction for the team, in my opinion. Also, if you look at what he was doing before the Wild traded for Marc-Andre Fleury, Talbot was allowing 4 or 5 goals every single game. They traded for Fleury, and Talbot all of a sudden looked like a elite goaltender after that, and then was upset that he didn't get started in the playoffs, and there was drama on Twitter and stuff with his wife. So for me, Bill Guerin knew what he had to do, and that's get rid of that. He got rid of Parise and Suter for similar reasons. You can't have distractions in the locker room. So I'm totally fine. Yes, Talbot, Gustafsson may be a downgrade, but I want to see what Talbot's going to do behind the Ottawa defense. I'm not so sure that you're going to see Talbot numbers that he had Minnesota and Ottawa behind their defense. And I think Gustafsson can improve behind the Wild's defense. Overall, a good trade. Brock Faber and a first-round pick for Kevin Fiala. Obviously, it does suck to lose Fiala. That's 85 points out of the lineup. But it just wasn't going to fit for him long-term. Adding Brock Faber, adding the first-round pick was a great haul for Fiala. Fiala, yes, he can definitely score goals, and when he is hot, he is hot. But when he's on a cold streak, he can turn the puck over a ton. So obviously no player is perfect. We are going to miss his offense, but I'm not heartbroken that he's gone. Andre Suster, Stephen Fogarty, and then Sam Steele, all other additions. I love the Sam Steele addition. This guy has the talent. Didn't really come through for him in Anaheim, but I'm excited to see what he can do for the Wild, and I won't be surprised if we see a bounce back here from Sam Steele. Bukestad, Nicolas Deslauriers. The contract that Nicolas Deslauriers got from Philly was not good. Was not one of Chuck Fletcher's brightest moves. That's for sure, in my opinion. It was kind of a long-term deal, but he wasn't going to get that in Minnesota. So good for him for getting that. Baribeau, John Lizotte, not too many opinions there. Jordy Ben, there's more turnovers gone. So Jordy Ben is not a big loss whatsoever. He can have fun where he is, wherever that might be. But overall, a mixed bag. I don't think the Wild got a whole lot worse. Obviously, Fiala is going to hurt the offense, but we'll be talking about some other players that should be joining the lineup this year. And I think the offense may take a small step back, but it's not going to all of a sudden disappear. We still have Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, so that's all good.
Yep.
We will go to Tyson first, or next in this segment. What do you think? Additions, subtractions?
I'm actually all right with the additions and subtractions. I don't think that the Wild are going to take as big of a step back as a lot of people seem to think that they are. I mean, one of my biggest things was the Gustafsson Talbot trade. I know a lot of people were kind of looking forward to that Fleury Talbot tandem, that 50-50 split. I mean, it was good possibility there that one of the best tandems in the league, but I can remember back in the World Juniors when Gustafsson was an absolute elite goalie, and I think if he can even get just a little bit of that, a little bit of mentoring from Fleury, a little bit of solid D with the Wild, and I think he has a chance to be at least a solid backup. And then we lose Fiala. That's going to hurt no matter what you're doing, but it also frees up a little bit of room in the roster, right? So like the Wild prospect pool is one of the best in the league. That's just so you've got all kinds of young stars there that are just waiting for their opportunity to break out. So you give them that chance, and you could see one of them absolutely explode. I mean, there's always a chance it backfires, but Brock Faber looks like an absolute stud, and Ogren, the pick that we got with him, like those two are looking like they could be potential core players. So, I mean, if you can turn a player that likely isn't going to stay with your team into that good of a return, it's always a tidy piece of work there. The other free agent guys, I wasn't a big fan of Deslauriers, actually. That he had that first game, he looked like he was going to be like a absolute monster for the Wild. He came in, he had the goal, and everyone was loving him, and then he just kind of fell off a cliff for me. He kind of disappeared, and he kind of just took up a roster spot in the playoffs that we have. I mean, like I said, we have such a just a stable of young stars that we could have seen some more time in playoffs, got them a little bit more time rather than Deslauriers. And then the contract that he got with Philly just blew my mind. That was, I couldn't believe that. So I'm really glad that that's not a contract the Wild have to deal with when they're already in such cap trouble. So as for signings, I really like the Steele signing. That's a solid signing, I think, at the deal that they got him at. Sam Steele is definitely has some massive upside there. It's basically a no risk signing, and the Schuster, that's a giant player to have on your right D whenever you're talking. The Wild's right D is always, there's always that stigma out there that the Wild have this tiny right D, like with Spurgeon and Addison kind of being smaller guys, and then you've got Schuster on that right side now. That, I mean, he makes up for them in every way. So yeah, I'm actually a big fan of this offseason. It was pretty quiet, but some big losses, but I think there's some big potential that came in there too that could really, really take the Wild even further.
For sure. Kalisha, additions, subtractions. What do you think of the offseason?
All right. From my view, I honestly think Guerin made a genius move by getting Gustafsson from Ottawa, because Gustafsson, like, he's a solid young player. He still has upside to, I believe he can be similar, like a Talbot or something, but he won't be, great. But the final destination is Wallstedt. The team needs a placeholder. Gustafsson is a great insurance policy, and we got Fleury to mentor, the younger goalies here. But let's say if Wallstedt struggles somewhat in his first AHL year, okay, Guerin's like, you know what? Another year, is needed. We don't want to rush him. And Gustafsson happens to be, an upcoming RFA. He won't cost anything. And you can probably sign him for maybe another year or two, just so, he's like a safety cushion. He's just a cushion for, when Wallstedt is finally ready to come up. And, when Wallstedt, comes up, then, he can ease his way into the starting role. Talbot, honestly, Talbot, he was solid for us when he was here. There were times where, he kept us in the games, and, last year in the playoffs when he played Vegas, he kept us in that series. But there's times where, Talbot, there'll be times where he'll be inconsistent at times, and he was somewhat injury prone as well. And I'm thinking Guerin was looking at that, and he saw that, okay, Talbot can still play with Fleury, but Fleury just seems more durable in net. And of course, he has the experience. He's played with Crosby in a dynasty Penguins back when they won their cups in 2015, 16, and 16, 17, and of course I believe it was 2009 too. But of course I like the Gustafsson addition. It's not really gonna well, of course, he could catch lightning in a bottle, maybe be a Jordan Bennington kind of ish player. You never know. Goaltenders are so mysterious. The other day I was looking at, his statistics, and I kind of compared them, to Kakkonen's, and I'm thinking, okay, he's still a mysterious player, but there's upside there. So I'm excited to see how Gustafsson plays behind our defense, because the Ottawa Senators defense, Thomas Chabot is he's pretty much the only caliber defenseman. Everybody else, Michael Del Zotto, Nikita Zaitsev, I believe Artem Zub, he's a decent guy, but their defense is horrible. So I expect a bounce back kind of year. I'm falling in love with Brock Faber. The more I read about him, and I kind of, see highlights and, from the tournaments. I believe him and Brodeem are going to be gold. I call him the bro code. They are going to be gold because they're just going to shut down everybody. I think that they're going to, eventually end up together. Maybe we might see Faber sooner, depending how the Gopher season goes. Andre Suster, I feel that was a solid pickup. He played time with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Lightning, their history of winning, and he's been around superstars, and Kucherov, Stamkos, Hedman, Vassy, and they'll, so it's like he's been in that background, but he's just going to be, injury insurance and everything. So I like him better than Jordy Ben, I think Suster's going to be fine. I'm not really too familiar with Fogarty. I think he's just going to be solid in Iowa, just a depth call up if Garen wants to, bring a body. Sam Steele is an interesting player. I kind of, looked up a little bit of his background and everything. And something that was interesting, I looked on YouTube, and I believe back in 2018, the NHL, they did top 50 prospects. And Sam Steele, he was number 30, so like a middle tier prospect. But I got my tablet now, so like it says notable players to win Memorial Cup MVP since 2009. Sam Steele, 2018, and the players before him, Mitch Marner, Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Huberdeau, and then Taylor Hall. Each of them are, premier players, in the NHL. I don't think that Sam Steele is going to be on the tier of a Nathan McKinnon or a Draisaitl explosive, but I believe that he can play a role of how Eriksson Ek just, he can take those important face-offs. He can go, it's like you have better matchups. You have better options for matchups. And I believe Steele is that depth signing where you can just slot him on the third, fourth lines, or sometimes if you feel like you want to do Ryan Hartman experiment, you can, plug him when injuries happen on the top line or the second line, ideally second line, I believe, but I really like the Sam Steele pickup, but yeah, Kevin Fiala, he's the biggest subtraction, but I believe he's not vital to the team like Kaprizov, and we saw it in the playoffs too. Kaprizov, he was just a one-man show for the most part, and we wanted to see that in Fiala, and we didn't really get a chance to see Fiala. And I remember one quote, I can't really quote it, but he was interviewing, and I believe that Fiala said something about you don't have too much space out on the ice, and I'm like, well, you're in the playoffs where space is taken away, and you're gonna just have to figure out how to navigate in a playoff setting. So I'm curious how he does in Los Angeles. Our center depth isn't the best, so I'm curious how he does with centers like Quentin Byfield, Anze Kopitar. He's pretty much at the end of his career, but Kopitar can still play. And then there was I forgot his name. Somebody help me. They just signed him last year. Philip Deneau. Yeah. I'm curious how he does with them. I don't really care for the other departures such as Delory. I can't believe classic Chuck Fletcher to hand out no trade clauses and no move clause. I've interacted with some Flyers fans, and they're just ready for Fletcher to be fired. They can't stand what he's doing there. Jordy Ben, goodbye. Not gonna miss him. Can't believe there's
You
time.
mean fans don't like being sent into cap purgatory and strained and handcuffed by bad contracts? You don't say.
Oh yeah. I've interacted with Flyers fans on the Flyers pages, and they just said that they haven't seen another level of idiocy. Basically, they're just done with Fletcher, and with the injuries piling up. Sean Couturier looks like he'll miss the rest of the season. Ryan Ellis, and what's with the love affair with Rasmus Ristolainen? I don't get the affair where Fletcher had to go ahead and sign him long term, where he could have used that money to get Johnny Gaudreau, who the Flyers, were interested in getting. So, Chuck Fletcher back at it again, and I guess they're counting on Delorier to contribute. I'm over Delorier in the playoff series against St. Louis. Braden Shen, he got to do whatever he wanted. He was running around, being a pest, running over Kaprizov. And I'm thinking, Delorier, you're the one who's supposed to be dragging people from the crease, just getting up in people's faces and knocking them out. But nothing happened in the Blues, and I'm over that. But yeah, that's all I got, for right now. So I'm actually curious, but I am excited about our new additions. I'm just ready to see when Faber comes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ian, we'll go to you next. So what do you think, additions and subtractions for the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you jettison some players out, you bring some players in, and I don't know if this team's markedly better or worse compared to last year. When I look at it, Cam Talbot, clearly there was disintegrating relationship with him and the GM, Bill Guerin. He felt, I didn't get my piece of the pie at playoff time in terms of getting the net, and that ended up meaning that it was goodbye to him, and he ended up getting traded for Gustafsson. The interesting thing about Philip Gustafsson, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. His numbers in Ottawa were horse shit. All right. They were not good. They were absolutely terrible. But you have to keep in mind a much weaker blue line playing in front of him these last couple of years in Ottawa. So this may not be a case of garbage out, garbage in necessarily here with Philip Gustafsson. This could be a situation where, you know what, it's a better, stable blue line in front of him. You got players that are going to defend the front of the net better on this Minnesota team than you got with Ottawa. So I leave the door open for improvement. As we know, there's some talent, there's some ability with this guy as a goaltender. Let's see if playing in front of or behind a better blue line is going to help Philip Gustafsson this year. You mentioned it in terms of Brock Faber, and we'll get to this more with the prospect pool, which is just as good as it gets in the National Hockey League. They're a top 5 prospect pool right now, the Minnesota Wild. But Brock Faber, certainly getting him from LA in that deal, is definitely going to be a big thing for them and improve that blue line a lot. Schuster's a nice veteran pickup. Kalisha hit on a great point with Sam Steele. I mean, it's a guy that hasn't taken off offensively with Anaheim. We did not see him play the way we thought he could, but there's a chance for him now. New scenery, better team, better surroundings, better line mates. There's going to be a chance for a greater impact here, I believe, for Sam Steele with the Minnesota Wild. They're very depth laden at center. And there's a ton of prospects waiting in the wings from a center ice perspective. So it's a competitive position right now for the Minnesota Wild, but don't underestimate Sam Steele's ability to maybe make an impact for the Wild next year. Terry hit on it. Tyson hit on it. Kalisha hit on it. When you're talking about losing Fiala, you lose some offense, but they've got more than enough to go around. And look, he's a streaky player, streaky offensive player. There were some turnovers in the mix. Delorier, you can live with parting ways with him. As Don Cherry calls him, Nick Ballstad, him being gone, it really doesn't matter too much because, his offensive limitations are there. He doesn't play a full season anymore. Health has been a big problem. And it was very obvious that they weren't going to keep Bukestad around. Jordy Ben, sayonara. It's just you can live with him being gone. He's just a depth defenseman and not a great one to begin with. So, it's a situation where this Wild team, based on adds and subtractions, they're not leaps and bounds better. They're not leaps and bounds worse either.
For sure. I think we can pretty much all five of us agree. Taking Jordy Ben out of the lineup makes it a better lineup. Addition by subtraction. I think we can all agree to that. Alex, what do you think here with the Wild's additions and subtractions?
Yeah, well, like I say, yeah, Jordy Ben definitely would be an addition by subtraction. And really, a lot of these guys that are gone are additions by subtraction. Nick Bustad, someone who I watched as a Golden Gopher and thought maybe okay, coming back home kind of rejuvenate his career, just simply hasn't. He's been a bit of a disappointment. He's a guy that I thought could be a 20, 25 goal scorer year in and year out in this league. He just hasn't been able to prove that just yet. Cam Talbot, of course, like I said, the way that he, left town and, he was part of that 1A, 1B system with Kokkonen at the beginning of the year. And of course, they go get Fleury. He had to kind of know the writing was on the wall in the sense of that he's not going to be, sharing that time. And certainly in the playoffs, you want to go with one goalie. Marc-Andre Fleury, a proven winner. They're obviously going to spearhead him first. So him getting out of town is a good thing. I think that's also a great improvement for Ottawa as well. I think he's going to fit better there where he gets the main role, doesn't have to worry about any competition. Getting back Philip Gustafson, who, we're kind of hard on him last year in Ottawa. Like I said, that was a really bad defense that was in front of him. And he's a young guy. He's only 24 years old. This guy's been kind of thrown into the fire really at every level he's been in. Even in the AHL level, his numbers weren't that great. But that Belleville team, the affiliate for Ottawa, wasn't really much to write home about. So, he's going to have to really kind of progress. He has a large ceiling, I think, compared to some other goalies they could have picked up. The thing is, with Fleury getting older, can he, shoulder the load and play 60, 65 games like he's used to doing? Keep in mind, he's a bit of a throwback in that nature where he's not really used to being that 1A, 1B guy. He's used to being the number one guy, and he'd want to play 70 games if a team let him, but can his body hold up with that? So that's the thing, with Gustafson, he can give you 15 or 20 solid starts, but to ask more of him, if Fleury goes down or something happens, that's going to be really kind of troublesome. Kevin Fiala, of course, the Wild had to get rid of somebody cap-related, and the fact that he played himself out of this lineup with all the penalties he took in that postseason. I mean, he just seemed like he spent more time in the penalty box than he did on the ice contributing in that series against the Blues. So now he's got a big paycheck in LA, and the Wild now have space where they can kind of develop some of these younger guys coming up.
Yes, for sure, and we will get to that here in the next segment. Is looking at upcoming free agents and top prospects for the Wild. I won't go too deeply into the prospects, except to say that the Wild have prospects everywhere. Jesper Wallstedt, obviously at goal. Carson Lambos, Kalen Addison, Brock Faber on defense. We have Marco Rossi, who will most likely be in the Wild lineup this year, I'm assuming on the second line. Liam Ogren, Danila Yurov, Adam Beckman, a player I'm really high on, and I'm really hoping that he can get a chance at cracking the lineup this year. And then there's others that I don't even have listed here. The Wild's prospect pool, and it's crazy how Guerin has done this. The Wild have not been a bottom feeder. And most people say when you're doing a rebuild, you have to be at the bottom. You have to get the top picks. But Guerin has just figured out a way to kind of retool this team to have a top prospect but still compete at the same time. So I've always sung praise with Bill Guerin since he's been hired, and I continue to do that. I think he's one of the best GMs in the league. I think. But maybe that's a Homer Wild opinion, but I like mostly everything he's done. Looking at upcoming free agents, the UFAs, Frederick Gaudreau, Matt Dumba. I have a feeling Dumba's time in Minnesota may be coming to an end. The reason for that, you have Boldy, who you're going to have to re-sign. You've got Gustafson, Tyson Yost, and Sam Steele. I'm not sure what happens with them. Brandon Duhaime will probably be a lower deal, so that won't cost very much. But the Wild do have, I think, one more year of cap hell coming up, where they're going to have to shed a little bit more salary. I'd hate to see Dumba go, but with the Wild's defensive prospects, I could see Dumba leaving Minnesota. But I would like him to stay, but with the cap situation, I'm not sure that's possible. So prospects obviously loaded, in my opinion, top to bottom. and upcoming free agents, you're going to want to sign Matt Boldy. Maybe it's a 3-year deal, something smaller. I'm sure Guerin will get something done that's right for the team. And then I'd look to get Sam Steele, Brandon Duhaime, Tyson Yost, if they're willing to sign team-friendly deals, get them all signed, re-signed as well. We'll go to Ian next. What do you think here? Prospects and upcoming free agents for the Wild.
It is amazing. And we need to give – it's not just Bill Guerin. If people think the GM is fully responsible for the prospect pool being loaded, you need your head examined. All right, the scouts are the one that deserve all the credit. The guys that are going to all these rinks, that are watching video, that are watching these games, whether it's Canadian Hockey League junior players, U.S. college players, going over to Europe to see these guys play in either a junior or pro league before they even hit the National Hockey League. They're the ones that are earning their money. They're the ones that are making the GM look good, finding these players, finding these diamonds in the rough. You don't always have to get a great player in the first round. You don't always get a weaker player in the 4th or the 5th round. And, the Minnesota Wild have done just a terrific job with their scouting staff. And when you look at it, and Terry's got a laundry list of prospects that you see right there on that screen. He didn't even get to everybody. There's even more than that. But it starts obviously with Marco Rossi. Matt Boldy could have been put on that list, but he's still young. He only got his first look with the Wild last year. Terrific upper tier offensive talents long-term for this team. A potential big-time goalie prospect of the future in Jesper Wallstedt, which is important because we don't know if Philip Gustafsson is going to be number 1 goalie material. We know Marc-Andre Fleury, Father Time is ticking on him right now. So you got to look toward the future in net, and they've done that with Wallstedt. Brock Faber, a great addition to the prospect pool in the deal with LA. Liam Ogren's got huge upside in terms of what he can do offensively. A top 6 winger is what they project for him moving forward. And then you look at the blue line, Carson Lambos, what he's going to be able to do. Kalen Addison, someone else that was brought in via a trade. And you didn't even get to this big Russian center that's playing in the KHL right now, Merit Kuznetsov. I mean, wait till he gets over here in Minnesota. Big guy, great hands for a guy of his size, good finishing ability as well. There's a lot that they are very anticipatory about when it comes to Kuznetsov's play. It's just a question of now, again, with this horrible Russia-Ukraine scenario going on, when are we going to see him here in the NHL? That's a big question there, but another one waiting in the wings, just loaded. Really, I mean, the blue line prospects are there. They've got center ice all taken care of. You've got, a depth center ice spot this year, and you got brought in Sam Steele. You've got Kuznetsov over in Russia. I mean, you're fine at that spot. You've got just defensive prospects. They're shitting out defensive prospects out their backside right now. They're just so loaded so much right now with what they can do on defense. So the prospect pool is fantastic, no question. And even more impressive considering Minnesota's stature as a legit Western Conference contender, the last few years, that they've managed to keep a prospect cupboard this stocked the last few years. As far as the free agent goes, obviously Matt Boldy is going to be very big priority, even as a restricted free agent. Sam Steele, he's basically going to be playing for, a contract, playing for Minnesota. Hey, we want you back. You got to prove it here this year if you're Sam Steele. Terry's right about Matt Dumba. Look, you've got to tend to Matt Boldy pretty soon. There's other pressing needs from a cap perspective, from a long-term, we got to sign this guy to a long-term deal. He's a big-time component of our team. There's prospects that are going to be getting looks with this Minnesota team. You got to plan for them in the future. And with Matt Dumba, it's just a worry of you can't keep everybody. He's going to demand a big ticket. He's a 1-2 defenseman on any team in the NHL. And he's still, in the middle of his career. He's not that old yet, 28. That's all he is. So it's very unlikely maybe you're going to be able to keep him. So especially when you've got Boldy, you've got other needs you've got to tend to. So, as far as Minnesota goes, Boldy's going to be the prime target for free agent signings going into next season. But decisions to be made. But prospect pool, like I say, I'm just completely blown away and just so impressed with what Minnesota has done with their prospect pool, considering how they've been going for Stanley Cups. They've been playoff team year after year, and here they are ready to bring in just another pipeline of young prospects and upper tier, upper echelon, blue chip talent, high ceiling talent for the next 5 to 10 years.
I love it. Great breakdown.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad I'm not the
You
only
guys
one that's
enjoy that.
high on all the Minnesota prospects. It's nice
Waxing
to get.
poetic on the Wild. Imagine that Terry would enjoy that. Yeah.
Hey, I remember those days on the ice, guys, when Ian would rant about the Wild when they weren't performing. I can't remember how many years ago though. When they were a bad team, Ian would rant on them, and I'd be like, "Oh, why is he saying those things about my Wild?" But now it's good to hear the positive stuff. Tyson, what do you think about the prospects of coming free agents for the Wild?
Well, I mean, you guys are just nailing it on the head, right? The Wild have just such a deep prospect pool in almost every category, right? They've got like upcoming stars in every position. It's crazy to think that they have like so many players that could potentially make NHL rosters, that it's actually exciting to know that the prospect is also there for them to make, the potential is there for them to make deal with their prospects, right? They can bring in some other players. They've got so many prospects that they can actually afford to lose some of them in other trades. They can bring in, especially once we get past these cap problems, and you're looking at like when the Wild are really in their window, the potential is there for them to bring in some really big names with some of these, what we consider as Wild fans as second or third tier prospects are, top prospects in other pools. So when you're looking at the future, it's a pretty exciting thing, which is new to some Wild fans. We haven't always had the most exciting prospect pools in history. Upcoming free agents. I mean, I'm right with you guys. There's a good chance Dumba's not going to be back next year, and it's just because you look at that prospect pool on the left, and you've got Faber, you've got Addison, right? They're coming right up behind them, and you're looking at two guys that are, potential NHL career defensemen that are going to be on, ELCs compared to Dumba, who's going to be, he's on 6 right now, unless he takes a massive pay cut, which I can't see it. There's so many teams right now that would be willing to pay him big money that just doesn't make sense for him to be staying around in Minnesota. Gaudreau, I know not everybody is a giant Gaudreau fan. I like Gaudreau. I think he plays a solid two-way game. I think maybe as a winger, he might have a potential with the Wild, especially with Rossi coming up. I think I think we're going to get into lines later, but so we can talk about that later. But I think he might have a future on the wing there. Joe, Steele, Duhaime, I can see those three guys. It's going to kind of come down to how they play this year. They're basically playing for their lives with the Wild, right? They want to stay. They have to prove that they can earn that spot. They're all three of those guys have massive potential. Duhaime's got a little bit more of a grit side to him, which the Wild don't have a ton of, so he might have a little step up on the other guys. But then Jost and Steele are both first round picks, so those guys have some of the skill there that hasn't really been tapped into yet. So there's some potential there that if one of those guys has a breakout year, they might actually play themselves out of the Wild just with our cap situation. So yeah.
All right, perfect. Clisha, I know there's a ton of prospects. I know you know a lot about the prospects too, and I know you like a lot of prospects that I don't even have listed here. But what do you think prospects and free agents?
Well, starting with the prospects, I just can't get enough of trying to learn more about them. But of course, the ones that we are curious about, is Marco Rossi. Like with Rossi, if we're gonna show any kind of turnaround or push, he needs to maximize the top 6. Ryan Hartman, is like he's projected to, center Kaprizov and Zuccarello. That's a fine line. I'm not really bothered by that line, but of course you need a center who can, be more of a natural playmaker, more of a natural center. Hartman, he's done a very good job where he's at a great contract. But with Rossi, he needs to, outperform Hartman where we can finally have that top six, because there's question marks with our top six. We don't even know who's our second and third line. Sometimes the Grief line's the second line. And then we have Bodie, Goudreau, Fiala. That was our, third line. But I'm excited for Rossi. Of course, him having his heart condition, messed him up where he was just taking out action. But for him just to come back and, play professionally at the AHL level and still put up, almost nearly a point per game in the AHL, that just shows you the potential he can do, against NHL competition. I'm just excited, for the chemistry between Bodie and, Rossi. It looks like those two are projected, to play together. Hopefully he can have a Calder kind of year. You know, hopefully Rossi can not really get injured much, because I remember some point of the season Rossi was banged up. So of course, at the NHL level, the NHL is a different animal. So how's Rossi gonna fare out during the season? Rossi's tough as nails. He's not afraid of heavy competition. It's like, can he make that impact now? So, but I'm still happy he fell to us when he did. He was projected to go in the top 5 in 2020, but he managed to slip to, number 9, where Brackett and Guerin were, just jumping up and down, So I'm confident Rossi will fit in fine. It's just a matter of how, will he maximize the top 6 and eventually find his way with Kaprizov, that magic there. Of course, I've talked about Jesper Wallstedt earlier with Terry. I just love how Wallstedt. Well, of course, thank you, Edmonton Oilers, for even trading with us so we can draft Wallstedt. Because without Edmonton, screwing up there, we wouldn't even have Wallstedt. Connor McDavid is just kicking his foot in the wall, just banging his head in the wall like we could have had Wallstedt. But he did. I thought he looked good against the prospects, the Chicago Blackhawk prospects, over this past weekend in a prospect tournament. Those first 2 goals, it's like he just shook them off. It tells you a lot about his confidence level. Also, too, Jesper Wallstedt, he has his own website too. That's something that I did mention earlier. I'll have to find a link, but it's like he's very mature beyond his years. It's like he's promoting himself to, the Wild fans or whoever he wants to promote himself to. He's just a great kid. He's taking this very serious. There's times where, because I remember watching an interview video with him, and he would say that he dropped out of school to focus on his hockey career. He's a very competitive kid, and you just love the passion and the pride that Wallstedt has. And I believe Wallstedt's going to take the NHL by storm, if we develop him properly. So that's why Gustafson is here, so he can be that placeholder. Brock Faber, I've already talked about, how I feel about Brock Faber. Good luck to him in his final season, senior year. Hopefully he gets to finally win a championship and bring that winning mentality to us. Ogren, I'm learning more about Ogren. I feel like his upside is better than what, some scouts give him credit for, because I've heard, some scouts would say he'll turn out to be a third liner, or he's more of a mill six. We can't really project his ceiling, but I'm thinking, okay, he's fast. He has a wicked shot. He can play a two-way style. He's versatile. He can spend time from center to wing. That's looking like a top 6 player right there, But of course, when you're drafted outside the top 5 or the top 10, of course, scouts are going to be skeptical, and they have every right to be. We don't know who these players are going to be in the next 2 to 3 plus years, but I really love Ogren, and I love that Ogren could potentially play with Eriksson Ek. I think there's going to be a great Swedish dynamic between the two. If they ever, if Everson ever thinks about pairing them together. Kalen Addison, I just love Addison's potential. He's had kind of a slow progression, but of course he's a defenseman. Defensemen take longer than forwards to find their mojo. Addison, he can quarterback the power play. He can move the puck up the ice. He has a great shot. He's a playmaker. He can do a whole lot of things, and I believe when Addison gets that confidence and develops more into a top 4 role, he's just going to explode. With Addison, I even wrote an article about him not too long ago. And in the AHL, to throw out some names, he's outscored and put better numbers up than Roman Josi. Let me see, Torrey Krug, Tony D'Angelo, and let me see, I'm trying to remember another name. I can't think of another name, but Roman Josi, that's the most notable name that I was able to pick out, because we know Roman Josi is a nightmare to play against for Nashville. I don't expect Addison to be a high-producing player right away, but he's going to make strides, to be a difference maker on the blue line. And of course, you hear rumors about, Addison potentially being a trade piece. And I'm thinking, and even Tony Abbott over at Zone Coverage, he even wrote an article too about Addison saying, if we want to compete with Colorado, because, Colorado, they have the world-class McCarr, and he has his group back there with Bowen Byram, Samuel Girard, Devon Taves, why would you trade somebody who can play a similar game to those guys? And I understand having size, but you want those puck-moving defensemen who can make, a difference. So I'm so happy that Addison finally gets a chance to show what he can do. He's not blocked by Ben. Guerin traded Kulikov, so pretty much it's official that we're going to see Addison for more games. He has nothing else to prove in the AHL. I'm just excited about Addison. Carson Lambos, I'm still excited about Lambos because here's the thing. I believe that we don't have to worry too much about Lambos because, yeah, he didn't get to play much for the Canadian team, but we have Jonas Brodin here for the next 6 seasons. Like Brodin is arguably, he doesn't put up the numbers, I know, but he's pretty much the best, defenseman in the NHL. I don't care what people say, come at me. So it's like Lambos can kind of ease into that role, where Brodin, is playing. And then, of course, Jacob Milton, that was a good sign by Guerin, so we can have cushion for these prospects to develop. But Lambos, I believe he's just going to be like eating up a lot of minutes, how, Ryan Suter used to do for us. He's going to be that good two-way defenseman. May not put up a whole lot of numbers, but he'll just be active because he's a great skater. In today's NHL, you have to be a great skater, especially on the back end. Lambos can, move, can kind of, move like how Makar, was skate back there. Not saying that he'll be Makar, but he'll be able to make an impact. Adam Beckman, I'm curious. I do want him to make the roster. I thought he looked fine at the prospect tournament. Of course, you wanted more from him. When, in that second game against Chicago, where, of course, Rossi and Wallstedt wasn't playing, so Chicago kind of looked at it like, okay, it's a little bit of an easier, matchup. I'm not trying to say it's easy, but but with Beckman, I heard in Iowa, who is it? Spoked. He usually keeps up with the prospects in Iowa, and he was talking about, okay, Beckman was playing a third line role, in Iowa, but he happened to, still score 11 goals and I believe produce 30 something points. And he shot the puck over he had like 200 shots on goal, top 10 in the AHL in shots, despite him having 11 goals. So you just want Beckman to, make an impact. But of course, maybe Beckman might need a little bit more time. I still think he can work more on his skating. But I just love Beckman's presence. We'll see the interviews on Wild.com, and you can just tell by the presence that he brings to the locker room and everything. That's going to be a big factor. And Yurov, I just love how Yurov is being misunderstood. Scouts, there's certain scouts that are skeptical about him. If you go over and watch a scouting report, I'm a fan of Will, and his work, though, like with him and some other scouts, they're not too high on Yurov's potential. But when you're outscoring Kucherov, Kaprizov, Buchnevich, and Artemi Panarin when they were when they were prospects during their draft years, there's something there where, okay, he has, really, really good upside to be a top line presence with, Kirill Kaprizov. I also have another article with Yurov too. Hopefully we can create our Russian five, a Russian five in Minnesota. With Huznadinov coming and hopefully Vladislav Firstov, that's somebody who's not listed that, who can make a surprise appearance. And that's pretty much as far as prospects goes. Free agents, I want to go to Dumba because I'm with everybody. Dumba's going to be likely either he's going to be traded or Guerin will just let him walk because, okay, yep, we're signing Bodie. And of course, Kalen Addison will also be at RFA, so we need to bring on Addison. If anything, they're going to get bridge deals just because, the cap is, keeping us down. And it's sad, because you just love, Dumba's character and what he brings and the kind of player he was projected to be. But I just feel that he jeopardized his own career because he worn out his body too much by trying to be a Dustin Byfuglien kind of, aggressor, kind of bruiser. It's fine to have a fiery passion, to finish checks and everything. I don't care about that, but when you're taking a huge toll on your body by, thinking you're bigger than what you actually are, And of course, in the playoffs, Dumba wasn't even 100%. We love how Dumba was being a captain, by playing for his team. But what good is Dumba if he can't really, shoot the puck? And his game is, being a power play presence and, being that offensive, spark defenseman. So it's like I feel that if Dumba would have, just stayed in his place when he was breaking out before that fight with Matt Kachuk that pretty much messed up everything, we would have had ourselves, like a 30-goal, 30-goal defenseman. I'm sorry I'm taking up time. I'm just excited. I see. Here's the thing with Tyson Jost. I'm just gonna speed it up. Either Tyson Jost makes the top 6 and plays with Rossi and Boldy, or he'll likely get dealt for more cap space, because I'm thinking, why would I pay $2 million to a fourth liner, who can't crack the top 6? I believe Sam Steele, Connor Dewar, those players can make Jost expendable if he can't crack the top 6. But that's what I think as far as upcoming free agents. I see Freddie Gaudreau either resigning for less, or he might find maybe another team to compete with. But yeah, that's pretty much my views and everything. Sorry, I was just talking a lot.
No problem, no problem. Alex,
She knows her
what do you think
stuff.
here?
Look at that. There's no question about that. Wow.
Yes,
That's great.
I wanted to
info
have
there.
Cliche
Plus,
on because she definitely knows the Wild in
she
and
made a
out.
great point about one thing. Who out there is got the brain thought process going that, hey, can't give Kalen Addison a shot here in the lineup right now. We got Jordy Ben here instead. So who thinks like
hopefully
that?
Nobody. But Chuck Fletcher, maybe. Chuck Fletcher, maybe.
Yeah, you can have him.
Alex, so what do you think prospects and free agents for the Wild?
Well, Ian, I think, made the biggest point of this all is that this is a testament not only to the GM but to the scouting and drafting, and it's very hard to draft in the NHL. I mean, you look at how many guys that fall by the wayside in the 3rd, 4th rounds and below. I mean, there's a reason why there's only 7 rounds instead of 12 in the NHL draft, because guys just don't pan out. But the Wild have done a tremendous job of building the organization from the bottom up. And this list is really a testament on both ends, because you look at these free agents, these are all guys who are going to chip in and give you some solid quality, right? Matt Dumba is still a quality defenseman. Frederick Gaudreau is a guy who can, kind of shuffle around the line. That's the depth of this team as well. You can put any of these guys in a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th line role. Kalisha mentioned about Adam Beckman. He was playing a 3rd line role in Iowa, but he had the talent to go anywhere within the top 3 or all 4 lines. So that depth gives you flexibility, and of course the Wild are going to need that because they're in cap hell. It's another 2 years really with those dead contracts that they have. So they're going to have to, really, guys are going to have to play for their jobs. They're going to, nothing is solidified, and that's not necessarily something you see from it's not in the situation of a bad team where everyone's job's on the line because this is just a bad organization. It's no, everybody's job's on the line because you have to be the best of the best to crack this lineup and play every single night. So that's going to really kind of gear everybody up, and you can move a Matt Dumba because you have Brock Faber and Callan Addison and Lambos, waiting in the wings. Philip Gustafson, I mentioned the ceiling for him still fairly high because he's only 24, but Jesper Wallstedt seems to be the future, not just in this team, but in the league. If he can stay at the pace he's going, this is definitely a guy we'll be talking about winning a Vezina probably in 8-9 years from now. That wouldn't shock me one bit. He could easily be a top tier goalie in this league based on what we've seen in limited play over the last couple of years. So it's a great list of prospects, and like I said, with these free agents, if they produce, you re-sign them and find a way to keep them. Hell, even if some of them produce and you're able to move them if need be, because like I said, because you have cap issues, you have that flexibility to make a deal during the deadline to free some cap space and try to get somebody else and try to improve in a spot. So it's a really good, a wealth of riches that Garrett and company have right now with this line.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how he's done it. Obviously, like Ian said, the scouting, you have to give the scouting Judd Brackett. Why Vancouver let him go, I have no idea. But I think that was a mistake. But we'll look at the possible lineup and give a quick, brief opinion on the overall lineup. This is, if I was coach of the Wild, this is what my lineup would look like on opening night. I'm not going to put Rossi on the top line. He's just getting his feet wet in the NHL. Let him start in the second line. So I'd have Hartman centering Kaprizov and Zuccarello just because of their experience together last year, and Kaprizov and Zuccarello's experience. Rossi and Boldy have already been playing the AHL together. They already have chemistry. I think Tyson Yost would be a great third addition to that line, bringing speed, but also he has experience. But he's also will be able to keep up with those guys. Jordan Greenway will be injured to start the season, so I'd have Eriksson Ek with Foligno and Duhaime. Just Duhaime brings that kind of fighting aspect and defensive aspect that Greenway would and would fit well with Foligno. That fourth line, Connor Dewar, Sam Steele, and Frederick Gaudreau could very well be a very good fourth line in the NHL. If you throw Adam Beckman in there somehow, I love this roster. I love the offense. I love the forwards. When you look at defense, I've said I think the Wild have one of the top defenses in the league when it comes to Spurgeon and Dumba, Brodin, Middleton. People don't talk about Brodin. He doesn't score a whole lot, but he doesn't have to because he does everything else so well, especially his defensive skills, his speed. He doesn't have to score. If he doesn't score, I'm totally not upset because everything else he does is so valuable. He doesn't need to score. That's not really his job. His job is to be the shutdown defenseman, which he does perfectly. Dumba, good partner because he does have offensive skill. Not that Brodin doesn't, but Dumba has more of that better shot. Then you've got Kalen Addison-Goligoski on the third line. Goaltending, Fleury, Gustafsson, McIntyre. Pretty nice lineup coming from Wild fan, but I like the lineup top to bottom. We'll start with Alex first this time. What do you think the possible lineup for the Wild?
Yeah, we know. It's like I was just saying earlier about the depth that this organization has. It's tremendous, and the fact that you can literally take a whole line and flip it to second to third or fourth to third. Or the fact that you can do that is huge in this game and in this day because you can match up against anybody. This is a team that really can match up against any of the other 31 teams in the league, and that's something you haven't been able to say about even some of the championship teams. To be honest, at given times, there's some Colorado, Tampa Bay, they have some matchup issues against some teams. The Wild, in my opinion, when they really have everything clicking and everyone's healthy, can match up against just about anybody in the league. And as you said, you've got a stay-at-home defenseman like Jonas Brodin, but you've got guys that can move the puck up as well. Kirill Kaprizov is just a growing star. Ryan Hartman, I mean, my Hawks and even the Nashville Predators, they both screwed up letting this guy just completely walk for virtually nothing in a pair of trades. And now the fact he's still only making $1.7 million this year, and a guy who could easily on that top line could easily be an 80, 85 point guy, if not higher. It's just a wealth of talent here. The big question mark, honestly enough, is goaltending, in my opinion. We talked about the future of Wallstead, but as far as right now, Marc-Andre Fleury, as great as he's been, he's a future Hall of Famer in his career, but you just wonder, when is he going to start, kind of unraveling a bit? When is the age going to catch up with him? And could it be this year? And the fact that he has Gustafsson, Zane McIntyre is pretty much an afterthought. He's just a body that'll be down in Iowa most of the year. But if Fleury can't stay healthy or can't produce at the level he's been producing his whole career, then things get kind of thrown out of whack. Because right now, this is a team, like I said, I like the Wild to at least make it to the Western Conference Final, if not further. But without Fleury, that changes everything. And you need tip-top Fleury. You don't necessarily need a Fleury that was in Chicago that was making 10 bell saves every night and facing 45, 50 shots. He doesn't have to do that. But he's got to be able to give you 65 starts, 50 quality starts, in a season. And, you don't have to rely on Gustafson until maybe later in the year. If you can try and get to a point where you're solidified in the playoffs, and then, you let Fleury get his rest in late March and April, and let Gustafson get the bulk of the starts late, then you can, that would be a good sign for the Wild. But so that's the only question mark really here in this lineup. Everything else looks to be rock solid. They're one of the better teams in the league, in my opinion.
Awesome. Clisha, overview of the roster. What do you think about it?
Terry, you pretty much hit it. Hit the nail on the head. As far as the lineup goes, I can really see Joe thrive with Bodie and Rossi. It's just a matter of him, finally just finding his stride. Garen brought him here. Okay, bring him here so he can play with skilled line mates. No disrespect to Freddie Gaudreau. I like Freddie Gaudreau. He's been a good depth player. He's shown his versatility and everything. But as far as top 6 quality talent, I feel that Joe's has more to offer to the table. Of course, his draft status and how, he was around, those superstar players in Colorado where he was able, to learn, from them. I hope that Joe's can, make a splash here and, play with Rossi and Bodie to maximize that top 6. Hartman, I love me some Hartsey. I love that fight with him and Evander Kane and, Hartman flipping the bird, telling him to get on, like we need, that's the kind of player you need to compete in the Western Conference, because the Western Conference, especially the Central, it's just going to be just hell. We struggled against teams like the Blues, the Predators. We actually, did decent against Colorado. For us to do decent against the Stanley Cup champions, that says something about, this team. And when you add, our number 1 prospect pool to the equation in Wallstedt, but of course, the Dallas Stars, they are, a mystery. They just signed Oettinger, who's a, solid goalie for them. But I believe Dallas, they're still gonna, be creeping around and can make a playoff appearance. Winnipeg, we don't know about Winnipeg, about what their outlook is. They're trying to find their identity. They're trying to get back to a playoff status, but it's going to be hell. So for us to have 4 lines to roll with, Duhaime, he has chemistry with Eriksson, Ek, and Foligno. He plays that heavy style of game where we can play that forward-checking, net crashing style. And Duhaime, he brings, speed, and I think he brings, a little more intensity than Greenway does. It's like with Greenway, you just look at him and you're like, you're 6'6", you're supposed to be a monster every night. You're supposed to have 10 plus hits, like we need you to be this mammoth, so it's like for Duhaime to have that mentality. I like Duhaime there. And Sam Steele playing with Dewar and Gaudreau, that's going to back up the Eriksson Ek line a lot. Matchups is going to be better. Let's say we're playing against Colorado. You can throw out Sam Steele, Dewar, and Gaudreau out against McKinnon at times, or, even their second line. We don't even know who Colorado's second line is going to be with their center because they lost Kadri. That's a key subtraction. How is Newhook going to do? So I believe matchups are going to be better for us. And of course, we have Depp in Iowa. Mitchell Shafee. He's kind of been, an outcast, but I believe he has, a good potential to be, a good pesty goal scorer. He'll be, a pest like Hartman, can be. Adam Beckman, of course, he'll draw in case of injuries. It's not going to hurt his development, because in the next couple of years or so, when the cap strap years are over, okay, Beckman will be polished and ready to go. Our blue line, I am a fan of our blue line. I believe it'll be better with Addison, where we can run those three pairs. Alex Goligoski, he has the experience. He's won a cup before. He'll be able to mentor Addison in ways. You'll be able to roll three pairs. Hopefully, Dumba, you want Dumba to be healthy for 82 games. I believe that's a question mark. Can Dumba stay healthy for the majority of the season? Because that's really going to give us an advantage, without a Matt Dumba in his fire. I can still see us competing, but, with Matt Dumba and his health, that's important. Middleton, I'm a fan of the signing. He just complements Spurgeon so well. It's like Spurgeon can be free and do what he wants, while Middleton can just push everybody out of the way, keep the net clear. And I agree with Alex about the goaltending being the biggest question mark. I believe the goaltending will make or break this group. Because, of course, you're not going to win the cup without goalies. Fleury, he's past his time. I believe Fleury still has, something left in his tank. He's still looking good at his age. But, it's like, how many games are we going to play him? I honestly believe that Gustafsson should get more looks just to keep Fleury fresh. Because if Guerin's intention is to play Fleury if we make the playoffs, okay, then you want him to be, fresh, where Gustafsson, he got maybe 25, 30 plus games, he got a good look at things. I believe if Gustafsson can get us maybe 30 or so games, that takes a burden off of Fleury, where he doesn't even have to play every night. I don't even want Fleury to play every night, because I remember when we used to play, we would run Devin Dubnyk into the ground. Those when goalies are getting older at the age, you want to keep them as durable as possible. We don't want any funny injuries going on with Fleury. Zane McIntyre. Zane McIntyre. He's a solid guy in Iowa. Him and Wallstedt should work well together. But yeah, I'm liking this team. It's not going to be great. But I believe there's going to be defensive improvement. Because of our blue line and we have a complete group. Can the goaltending do it? If not, okay, more draft picks. Brackett, he gets to go back to the whiteboard and just, he gets to work his magic. I believe it's a win-win situation for us regardless, because we are in the cap strap years where we are getting prospects and we're going to keep getting more and more. But yeah, goaltending, question mark.
For sure. Tyson, what do you think about the possible lineup for the Wild?
I'm right there with you guys. It's a solid lineup up and down. The one thing I'd like to see from the Wild a little bit more is, I know where chemistry in a lineup is super important, but the Wild seem pretty set once their lines are there, and there's not much fluidity. Last year we kind of had 4 lines and that was it. We didn't see much movement. I think especially with Greenway out at the beginning of this season, like that first line, nobody's going to change that. That one's pretty deadly. So, and then with the Grief line, that was kind of a shutdown one. But with Greenway out, I think it kind of gives them a chance to run maybe some different pairings that we didn't see last year. Maybe try a few different things, try and develop a little bit more chemistry between some different players. I like that Jost with Rossi and Boldy line. I think Gaudreau could also, play some games there. He's a little bit more responsible, a little bit older. I think Rossi and Boldy might have a little bit more offensive upside to them. Gaudreau might be able to play, a little bit back checking for them there. I think Jost would actually pair well with Eriksson Ek and Foligno. I think he has a little bit more of a grit to his game than most people give him credit for. He's kind of played on that 4th of a grit to his game that might blend well with Eck and Foligno. Neither of those guys really are much for shooting. So I think you put someone in there that has a nice shot, and you might be able to get a little bit more offense out of that line. And then that bottom line is, basically plug in whoever's playing good and let them go. That fourth line for the Wild last year was a big key to us doing well. They were putting out that fourth line in high pressure moments, deep in the third periods, when you're down a goal, and they were still trusting that fourth line. And I feel like you've got some guys down there that can absolutely, make the game for you. So I would like to see a little bit more fluidity just all over the lineup. Don't be afraid to try some different things. It's the only way to find out if something could work for you.
Yeah, for sure. Everson didn't do that in the playoffs last year when he should have. The Blues were taking it to the Wild, and there were times where he probably should have made some changes and didn't. So, yeah, that's probably the only negative thing I have to say about Everson is that. But, Ian, what do you think about the Wild's possible lineup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the top six got great potential. Full season now of Marco Rossi. Let's see what he can do in the number 2 center spot. Matt Boldy already showed you a great glimpse of his offensive finishing ability last year. Thought he was very good on the power play as well. It's going to be good to see him work with the man advantage again. Tyson Jost is a guy that, now a full season with Minnesota, sometimes for players that are just traded at the deadline, it's not easy to just settle in and be comfortable right away. You come in, you get a training camp and a chance to start the season with this Minnesota Wild team from the beginning. It's probably going to help Tyson Jost. And Tyson Jost is going to be a guy, if that's the line with Rossi and Boldy, I think it's a good chance that is your second line. He'll do the grunt work. He'll go into the corners, he'll retrieve the loose pucks, he'll do the forechecking, he'll do all the grimy stuff to set up, Rossi, set up Boldy, do all that kind of thing. So hardworking player, tenacious forechecker, that's what you get in Tyson Jost's game. That's when he's at his best. If you can bring that with that potential line mate combination there with Rossi and Boldy on the second line, that's pretty good for Minnesota if they get that out of Tyson Jost. Foligno, Eriksson, Ek, Duhaime, very capable. I think it's going to be a competition in the fourth line. That's what you love. You love competition. You love that you have options if you're the head coach here, Dean Evison, in terms of where you're going to go with maybe your fourth line center, because Freddie Gaudreau's on that spot. But, Sam Steele's going to be knocking on the door, pushing him, I think, for one of those that fourth center spot. And there's a lot of competition, and you're going to see, like we've mentioned about Kalen Addison's going to get a very good look in training camp as well. You've got Andre Schuster, you've got John Merrill, you've got a ton of options there. So we know Brodin, Dumba, Jacob Middleton, by the way, I want to sing some praises for him. He's very good in his own end. Put someone on their ass in front of the net, knock them on their keister, clear the front of the net, clear a loose puck, drop the gloves, defend a teammate when need be. That was a nice pickup. Jacob Middleton. You need some of that sandpaper as well on your blue line. Minnesota gets that with him. Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba. It's a great foursome there. Like I say, Goligoski gives them a little more mobility, puck movement from the back end as well. It's a very versatile blue line. There's guys that can do different things on that blue line, which I like. That's what I like about it for Minnesota. The goaltending, talked about it with Marc-Andre Fleury. I think what Kalisha says bang on. You can't run this guy 75, 80 games this year. You can't. You got to give Philip Gustafsson a fair number of games. Fleury needs some rest. He needs a little blow at this time of his career. He can't be playing a full season. That's why you got Gustafsson. You got to play him 20, 25 games. And yeah, his numbers weren't good in Ottawa, but again, he'll be playing in front of a much better blue line here. I think that'll help him out. So, yeah, it's a lineup that's very solid, I think, up front. The blue line, as long as they don't, and look, they can sustain injuries and actually have a lot of options to go to. So actually, they're one team that can sustain some injuries, be able to plug in, some AHL call-ups, some prospects, some guys that, maybe sitting out as a healthy scratch as a seventh defenseman, be able to bring someone in and play at a solid level. You don't want them maybe 25 minutes on the ice every game, but they can come out there, play in all situations, play at least 15, 20, be sturdy, not get exposed on the back end. And like I said, the two goalies, I think will work well. And I think Gustafsson with a better team around him will play better. I got a jet, so I'm going to briefly, because I got a show at 5:30, I got to briefly say about the futures that I'm not going to really do much with them. I'm not going to bet the point total. I think it's right around where they're probably going to end up being. I could make a case for the over, but I don't love it enough to bet it. To make the playoffs, I think they actually, you know what, to make the playoffs, they should, but obviously the price of that isn't the greatest. I'm tempted to win the division, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I can bring myself to say, hey, anyone but Colorado can win this division. I don't know about that. Even though I've got some questions now with Colorado winning the Cup, is that interest level there? Is this a Golden State situation here where you're pacing yourself in the regular season? It's not about winning President's trophies. It's not about winning the division anymore. It's about just getting through the regular season now if you're Colorado, and then flip that switch and be at your best at playoff time. That could open the door for a Minnesota or a St. Louis if maybe Colorado just coasts through the regular season. So for that reason, I'm kind of tempted by the division. And I actually like the prices on Minnesota from a Cup future standpoint. I don't mind 20-1. I think, that's not a bad price for them. There's things that are going to have to come together for them, no question. Fleury in the playoffs, can he be at a high level? Can this blue line, play at I think they could be really good. Can they play like it? And can they get, more of a big offensive push from Boldy and Rossi and some of these big forwards they're counting on to support Kirill, the Thrill Kaprizov? That all is a question, but it's very possible. And if all those things happen, this is a damn good Minnesota Wild hockey team. And at 19-1, 20-1 to win the Stanley Cup, I think it's worth a small look.
Wow. Ian for president or Ian for prime minister. sounds good to me. But thanks for coming in.
Great stuff. Kalisha, fantastic job. Tyson, great job. Alex, my friend, can't wait for another season of the Ice Guys. Great stuff. Terry, all the best. I'm out.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
All right, see you.
So Tyson and Kalisha, I don't know if you guys do the sports betting at all, but this is kind of the sports betting type part of the end of the show, looking at the point total and the odds to make the division, the playoffs, and the cup and stuff. Ian kind of went through it. For me, the point total is 101.5. So we got 113 last year. Are we going to fall 12 points to 101 or lower? I'm not sure. That's a long bet to have. Once you place it, you have to wait, obviously, until the end of the season. So it's a long bet to wait out on. Nick put here in the chat, Wild to miss the playoffs at plus 300. He's sad he couldn't be on the show today to trash talk the Wild, but unfortunately we had a full guest list. So, but no, everyone's entitled to their opinion. If the Wild's goaltending somehow gets Fleury is bad or gets hurt, there's a possibility we could miss the playoffs. I just don't see it though. You'd have to be waiting on a Fleury injury, or even with that, the Wild could acquire somebody and then still be okay. So I can't bet the Wild to win the Cup. Like Ian said, we haven't made it past the first round in forever. I need to see this team. We have to make it past the first round. That is goal number one, is we must make it past the first round. Alex said conference finals. That's I think what most people would expect from this roster, but I need to see it this year. I'm not currently putting my money on it, but I need to see it. The Wild need to bring it this year. Tyson, we'll go to you next. As I said, I'm not sure if you do betting or not, but what's your opinion here on the Wild's future this year?
Yeah, I don't do much betting, but I can tell you I don't think we're taking that big of a step back in point total. I know last season basically playoff teams were 100-point teams, and I think the Wild are still a playoff team. I don't think that we're even close to being we're still a solid team, especially in the Central. Seems like a lot of teams in the Central kind of took a step back this year as well. So, I mean, if you're looking at it in terms of just our division, I think we're right up there with the top of them. Even Colorado, I mean, Colorado's got a brand new goaltending situation. They lost Kadri. They have a lot of question marks as well. So I think the Wild probably won't hit 113 again. I think that might be a lofty goal to go for, but I'm definitely taking over that 101.5. And to make the playoffs, I'd put money on that for sure. I don't think there's any chance that the Wild don't make the playoffs in the Central. win the division, win the cup. I'm not so sure on those guys. I'm not that confident. I know we definitely still have our question marks as well. So goaltending always seems to be a question mark, whether, a lot of teams can get on a good goaltending streak and just go for it. So, I mean, you're looking at the Canadians the other year, like a couple of years ago, that just came out of nowhere and went crazy. So I don't know if I can put money on division or win the cup, but yeah, I'm definitely taking playoffs. And I think the Wild settle somewhere right around that 106, 107 point mark. I feel like that's kind of where they are right now. So that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. 107 points. I like that too. Kalisha, do you think the Wild hit 102 points? Do you think they make the playoffs and win the division or win the cup?
Here's how I see the season. And Tyson, he pretty much was bringing up the same thing. I was thinking the Central, I believe, is somewhat going to be a crapshoot because it's like each of these teams have their question marks, like with Colorado. How's Georgiev going to react to playing, in more of a starting role? Because, of course, Kemper, he isn't the best goalie, in the world to throw out there. But the thing about Kemper is that he was good at being a big goaltender, where if he wanted to take up space in net, he can. And Colorado's talent just took over. I got to watch some of that playoff series against the Avs taking on the Bolts and everything. Georgiev, he doesn't have the size like Kemper does, and he's been just up and down. So it's like when Georgiev is playing with Colorado, and let's say Colorado makes the playoffs, he has to go through that gauntlet through the Western Conference. So, and then who's Colorado centers other than McKinnon? Who's gonna play second C? Will Ben Mayers be there? They signed him. They stole him from the U. That's okay, but yeah, Colorado has question marks. The Blues, they got some question marks. They lost their, David Perron. Even though he's older in age, he was a menace on a power play for St. Louis. When we took on the Blues and everything. The Blues, I expect them to still be, a good team. Well, of course, their goaltending situation. They lost Husso to Detroit. I mean, he wasn't, the best, but he was, pretty solid for St. Louis. Binnington is a nutcase. How's Binnington gonna do? Of course, Chicago's a crapshoot. Dallas has question marks. Winnipeg got a lot of question marks. Connor Hellebuck, he's still pretty much arguably the best goalie in the Central, but of course, with Winnipeg, they have blue line problems. They took the C from Blake Wheeler, so, and I'm thinking this could be an open season for the Wild if their goaltending situation can hit, and the lineups can hit, but most importantly, our special teams. If we can take a good step in the direction with our special teams, our power play and our penalty kill, if those are status quo, if our goaltending is good, if Rossi makes an impact and our centers are actually good, I honestly think that the Wild can surprise people. They can, win. They can maybe compete with Colorado for the number one spot. The number one spot is reserved for Colorado, but of course, that's not how it goes. The Wild, they could, finish within, 1 to 2 or 3 in the Central. I don't see them getting 113 points because, of course, Fiala, was our second best offensive contributor, so we lost that. But I feel that maybe 102 points or maybe even, 99, or they're still going to make the playoffs. But like you said, Terry, too, you want to see more than a first round appearance. We're over it. When we played the Blues, we felt like, okay, it's going to be different. And then we saw that horrible Game 6 performance. So basically it's only a matter of time before everything falls in place. So, yeah, I'm thinking the Wild will make the playoffs. I hope they can make the conference finals. That's what I'm thinking too. Where Alex was saying, he wants to see a conference finals. I do too. But of course, the Central, and of course with Nashville too. Can Suarez stay healthy? When they lost UC Suarez, Colorado, they it was just a breath of fresh air. Easy 4-game series. So, but yeah, I'm feeling confident, but those question marks of, how far can we go due to, point A, B, and C, but I'm feeling somewhat confident.
All right. Alex, finish us off. What do you think about the futures for the Wild this year?
It's funny because I'm the only non-Wild fan on this panel, but I'm really high on them. And honestly, I love this over because of the division. It's not that good. Arizona's going to be the worst team in the league, and it's for a myriad of reasons. They're going to be worse than they were last year. Mm-hmm. Chicago's going to be right at the bottom. They're trying to tank and get the number 1 pick for Connor Bedard. I'm not high on Nashville at all. I think Nashville's taking a step back. I think Winnipeg's in some real trouble. Kalisha, you mentioned about Wheeler getting stripped of the captaincy. He's probably going to be on the move. That's a franchise that's going to have some tough roads ahead of them, and they seem to be like in that Columbus range where, at least until Columbus was able to get Gaudreau, they aren't going to be able to get a lot of free agents moving forward. That's not a high impact city that's going to be able to draw a top-tier player. So they're going to really struggle if they don't rebuild quickly within their organization. Colorado, you always worry about the Stanley Cup hangover. They had a lot of injuries they overcame during the regular season. They're actually an often injured team. They're almost like Pittsburgh in that sense, where they've dealt with just a lot of guys going down for, not necessarily season-ending injuries, but just, guys missing a month, guys missing 2 weeks here or there at very inopportune times. So with that being said, I like this over 101 because of the fact that you got 2 of the worst teams in the league in the division, and you got 2 or 3 others that might struggle. Playoffs are, I don't want to use the word lock, but I mean, it seems to be Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas that could easily run away and be the only 3 teams out of this division that make the postseason. Possibly St. Louis if Bennington can kind of keep his head screwed on for the whole season, which that's asking a lot. So I like this division price here, but I would actually wait. I would not bet at plus 350. I would wait maybe a few weeks into the season, and here's why. Like I said, Colorado could take a bit of a step back early. That remains to be seen. They've got a pretty easy schedule. The Wild, the longest road trip they have the whole year is a 5-game road trip in the middle of October. They might struggle a little bit in that spot, and then you'll see that number go from 380 to maybe 400, 500, even 6-1, and that would be the time to strike and bet on the division. As far as the Cup goes, I'm not going to be betting on that. I rarely bet on anyone to win the Stanley Cup, but I would take a flyer with them to win the Western Conference. I don't see that price listed on here, but I've seen that within the 10-1 to 15-1 range. I definitely think they could at least get to the conference finals, and if I got 15-1 in my pocket, I can decide to hedge at that point or ride along with it. So I'm really high on the Wild this year. If they stay healthy, the sky's the limit for them. And like I said, I think they've gone through enough playoff disasters to where this year can really be the where they get over the hump and make some noise and at least win 1, if not 2 series or more.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about your Blackhawks knocking us out 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's for sure.
we won't have to worry about that this year. I still have nightmares about those years. But that is today's show. Thanks, Tyson, for coming. Thanks, Kalisha, Alex, again. If you want to find everybody, the links to their Twitters will be in the description below. It was awesome having you guys on. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the content, smash the like button. We appreciate all the support. Thanks for coming, guys. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks.